As always, before we get started, I just wanted to give a special shout out to all the channel members. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, it is $1.99 per month to join. Thank you to all of the channel members. Let's get on with the video. Hey everyone, Pineapple Sway here. If you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing. Let's get into this pretty lengthy video of how I would have written Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and how the game would have played out in my own opinion. As always, like what I said, please consider liking and subscribing. Road to 2,000. This is going to be a very long video and kind of just me yapping about how I would have changed Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and how I would have had it in my own vision. Now, base game is only 7 chapters. We will be changing this up a bit and making the story a very lengthy 11 chapters. Starting with Chapter 1. Chapter 1, I would be taking inspiration straight from Batman Arkham City, as this chapter would be playing as none other than the Justice League, building up on some missing characterization that the League desperately needed. Taking more inspiration from the A-Day mission from Marvel's Avengers, except obviously it's the Justice League Day. And we would be playing as the League, knocking out various objectives in the Hall of Justice in prep for the big celebration day. Of course, we would be starting out as Batman, who's working on a project that resides in the Hall of Justice that we will come back to. Batman then would go down to the basement in the Hall of Justice where he would find Wonder Woman. I wouldn't touch up on the relationship between Diana and Bruce, but I would definitely suggest that there is something between them. We'd then switch to Wonder Woman, who would talk about the League's previous incursions, then fast forward to Green Lantern, who's out observing the skies of Metropolis and notices something off in the distance but doesn't pay much mind to it. Subtle foreshadowing. Here, we'd give you this creative freedom to explore Metropolis and see it for yourself from the eyes of Green Lantern. We'd then take you to the Flash, who's observing the streets of Metropolis and watching from the ground. And, like Lantern, give you the creative freedom to utilize the power of the fastest man alive. Lastly, we'd move to Superman, who isn't doing much but is flying around and greeting all of his wonderful people of his great city, Metropolis. We'd then cut to a new scene with the tagline of 24 hours later. This would conclude Chapter 1. Chapter 2. Now in Chapter 2, this is our introduction to none other than Task Force X, who has no idea what is going on, but we are keeping the cast the same, and we keep the story relatively similar to what the Arkham cutscenes had to offer from the base game, but we'd be taking inspiration from the prequel comics and showcase why did Waller pick this group to serve as Task Force X. Basically, if you've read the prequel comics, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to, as chaos breaks loose at Arkham as Waller has released all of the inmates wanting to find who's got what it takes to be a part of Task Force X. This would serve as a tutorial, giving players chances to kill iconic villains from DC and showcasing future villains as well. But in all, our beloved Task Force X survives and Waller picks them to be a part of this suicide mission. Waller gives no information on what exactly the squad is headed to, but they're neck bombed and shipped off to Metropolis. Now we are taking a script from the game and keeping them on track of going to the hall and exploring the hall. Now we keep everything the same, basically to everything up to the Batman experience. So Lantern will capture the squad and the Flash would come in to save them, except back at the hall where they start out, we'd go back to the project that Batman was working on that I mentioned in Chapter 1, as Deadshot points it out to the squad as it would be picking up a signal as a communication system, as it would be a distorted comms unit with the signal coming from E2, Earth 2. We will set this up later. The squad thinks nothing of it and goes on with their mission. Waller would give them an alert of their alpha target, which is in the area, which would be Green Lantern. So when they make their way out of Metropolis, much like the game, they're shocked at what they find. However, fast forwarding, as we'd keep everything the same from base game, the squad just got their butts kicked by Batman and realizes that the Flash for some reason isn't corrupted but was captured by Batman. Waller obviously orders him back to the hall for prep. Now to conclude Chapter 2, we would be taking you back to the perspective of Batman, who is now corrupted, where we would be forcing the player to torture the Flash and force him to join the corruption process. Much like the burning of the Joker from Arkham Knight, you won't be able to move on until you torture Flash and corrupt him. We'd then get introduced to Brainiac 1, but we'd be watching a conversation between Batman and Brainiac 1 from the Flash. But since Flash is disoriented, he isn't able to hear or see what's really going on. To finally finish this chapter, we'd move on to Wonder Woman, who is out and about in the city, as she isn't corrupted and is reliving the moment of watching all of her friends getting corrupted by Brainiac, and the horrors of the invasion. She wouldn't be able to put all the pieces together, but thinks nothing of it, and wants to save her friends, especially Bruce. That would be the end of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, I would keep things similar to the game by having the squad head to LexCorp and finding about Kid Ivy's whereabouts, as obviously we know that LexCorp Task Force X wants to get the bombs out of their head. Now, here we'd introduce the squad to Lex Luthor, who is obviously going to be in his war suit and going to take on the Flash and Brainiac. This would lead to what we saw in the main story and Luthor getting captured by the Flash and leading the squad to the Behemoth boss fight. Now, except with the Flash ripping Lex Luthor's heart out, I'd be keeping him alive. As this time around, I would be replacing the role of Poison Ivy with Lex Luthor and throwing out Poison Ivy entirely. As I was saying, to keep the Flash from killing Lex, we would have a fight between Wonder Woman and the Flash, and a Lex Luthor rescue mission with Flash saying his gut-wrenching line of "We have to die to save the world." This would conclude Chapter 3. Chapter 4 would start with Lex and the squad back at the hall as Lex tells the squad of an unknown rat in the core of 13 Brainiacs. Brainiac 5. That could be useful to the squad, we will touch up on this later. Lex warns the squad that there are more than 13, but one of them may not exactly be what they're looking for. With this, the squad is shocked on how do they even go about this. However, Lex says not to worry as he tells the squad about a friend of his where he's been getting this information from, in which our case wouldn't be Lex 2, it would be none other than the Grim Knight. Now, the Grim Knight has been trying to get in contact with this world's Bruce Wayne and warn him about Brainiac, but instead found communication with Lex. Subtle foreshadowing. Lex tells the squad that the Grim Knight on his world was able to find ways to kill 4 Brainiacs, but when he was invaded by the rest, he had to hide and retreat. But now he's found a solution, a way out, and a new home, and wants to come to Earth 1 to help our new Task Force X defeat the remaining Brainiacs. On his world, Grim describes that Lex was good and the leader of his Justice League, which led him to believe and trust this world's Lex into giving him all of the information and power he needed to defeat Brainiac. Obviously, this world's Lex doesn't have good intentions. Now, to finish this chapter, the squad would do all of the usual stuff to get ready and prep for the Flash with the help of Luthor and Toyman. So this would remain the same from the game with the squad killing the Flash, leading to Lantern showing up, but also like the game, we'd have the squad get warped to Earth 2, where they'd meet the Grim Knight, who promises that he can get them back safely to Earth 1, but wanted to show them what Brainiac has done to his Earth and his Justice League. His league wasn't prepared for Brainiac and lost everything, but this world's Bruce Wayne, who is now the Grim Knight, survived and has been preparing and working on a new plan to take down the remaining 9 Brainiacs. Grim would then mention that he was able to get them warped here due to the energy distribution of them killing the Flash, also making a claim that they have to kill the League to defeat the Brainiacs, but there's a way to save them. He just isn't sure how it can be done. This chapter would conclude with Grim and the squad headed back to the Hall of Justice on Earth 1, where Grim makes a comment about, hopefully this Earth's Waller doesn't get them killed. Grim and Lex would then get the squad set up to kill the Green Lantern. This would conclude Chapter 4. Chapter 5. Much like the preparation phase for Green Lantern, I'd be keeping it the same, with this time Grim and the squad breaking into Wayne Bank to get all the resources needed, such as the Yellow Lantern rings, where they would meet Wonder Woman crafting the Kryptonite shield, where Bruce, Grim Knight, sees Diana and freezes, but quickly realizes that this isn't his world's Diana. Wonder Woman explains that she's going to find Superman and try to save them, with Grim explaining that the only way to beat Brainiac is by killing the League, where the squad would then break the news that Barry Allen is dead. We'd then cut to a flashback scene taking more inspiration from Arkham City like the Catwoman missions, as we'd play out a scene with Diana and the Flash preparing and looking forward to Justice League Day. This would finish with Green Lantern telling the Flash and Wonder Woman through voice comms that Metropolis is under attack and that he's injured, and that Superman has gone missing, piecing together the story of all that happened on JL Day. Now, going back to the squad, they now take the fight to Green Lantern, as we'd keep everything the same, with Deadshot shooting Lantern in the head, and this would play out like the game, with Waller launching a nuke and thanking them for their service. But much like the game, Superman would then show up, stopping the nuke in its path. This would then lead to everyone else that followed all the way up to the point of Superman and Wonder Woman. However, we would be keeping Wonder Woman out of the picture, as right before Superman fires his beams to burn Wonder Woman, the Grim Knight would then step in and take the beam, critically injuring him and leading him to his death, originally like Wonder Woman in the base game. However, before Grim turns into ash, he repeats over and over that 5 is the key, meaning Brainiac 5. This would conclude Chapter 5 and now lead to the squad and now Wonder Woman planning to take on Batman. Chapter 6 would start with the squad going to the Batcave, much like the main game, where they find and learn about Batman's contingency plans against the League. As Batman claims, there is no Batman killer. Now, we'd make the Batman Fear section a bit longer and more interesting, obviously, and have that consist of the boss fight. We'd have the squad not kill Batman and instead bring him back to Wonder Woman, and she insists that it's best to trap him and use the lasso of truth on Batman. This works on Batman, and the corruption drops from Batman and is a moment of silence, realizing that Batman is back and no longer corrupted for now. Batman and Wonder Woman talk about Brainiac 1 and what he's done to the League, and Wonder Woman tells him that Flash and Green Lantern are dead, and that the Flash said the only way to save them is that they have to die to save the world. However, squad banter leads to them saying that Grim said that their friends could be brought back. Batman questions who is the Grim Knight, realizing that it's actually him from another dimension. We'd then jump to another mission and flashback scene of Wonder Woman and Batman, as here there would be a reference to the episode in Justice League Unlimited, building and establishing Wonder Woman and Batman as serious love interests. However, making the joke, just like from Justice League Unlimited, that there's no time for dating for the Batman. We'd then come back to Wonder Woman as Batman tells Wonder Woman that if he has to die to save the world, then he's willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of others. Batman insists that Wonder Woman kills him and finishes him off, as he's already injured and already hanging on after his fight with the squad. Now, this would cause serious damage to Wonder Woman, but eventually she would do it. However, unlike the actual game, I would not show the death of Batman, realizing now that the squad only has to fight Superman. They now prepare to take on Superman, and this would conclude Chapter 6. Chapter 7. We'd keep this just like the game and have the squad meet at Centennial Park to take Superman. Obviously with the gold kryptonites to take him down, so we won't spend much time on this. Also like the game, this would lead to the squad getting captured by Brainiac 1. Now up until this point, to not cause confusion, the squad only has to kill 9 Brainiacs. We would keep the story the same and have the squad defeat Brainiac, who turned himself into the Flash. Now everything would basically conclude the same, that the squad defeats Brainiac and Lex would use Grim Knight's info and Brainiac 1's tech to find and pinpoint the other 8, which would conclude Chapter 7 and take us to Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Now Chapter 8, we wouldn't hold much story, but to start we'd have Wonder Woman playing out the missing pieces of all that happened on Justice League Day to build some depth. With that, use your own imagination. For that, now, these chapters would serve much like our post-game content currently, as a squad would kill Brainiac 2 and 3, which would be a fusion of Flash and Green Lantern, and Flash and Superman. That would conclude Chapter 8. Chapter 9, we'd now have the squad finding and pinpointing the location of Brainiac 4 and 5, which Brainiac 4 would be a fusion of Flash and Batman, and Brainiac 5 would be unique, and doesn't require any fusions and relies on his 12th level intellect. After defeating Brainiac 5, he would plead for his life, claiming that he knows how to save their friends, and save the League, claiming that they're actually not dead and that they've been regenerated, and that Brainiac 13 is using and distributing their DNA and metahuman abilities to different Brainiacs across the multiverse. Brainiac 5 joins the squad and helps at the Hall, and will play the role of Miss Freeze, using his intellect and tech to set up pods that will break corruption of the League. Now, since I'm lazy, much like Rocksteady, when it comes to writing, we'd have Brainiac 5 basically explain how defeating the Final Four will bring back their friends, so use your own imagination for that. Chapter 10. This would consist of the battle of Brainiac 6 and 7 and would lead to the return of Flash and Green Lantern. And now we'd have Wonder Woman, Flash, and Green Lantern a part of the squad. This would be a short chapter, but be mainly cutscene focused and flashback focused of the 3 of them reliving their days with their missions together as a League. Once again, use your own imagination for that. I'm sure you can come up with something, but this would conclude Chapter 10. To the return of Batman and Superman. Now with the League coming back and the Brainiacs defeated, as we'd have the League and the squad team up to take down the last Brainiac. However, as the squad had to travel to different dimensions, the team gets a transmission back from Earth 1, from none other than Lex Luthor, who says he's taken Brainiac's tech for his own and has killed Waller and Brainiac 5. And he's taken control of the Skull Ship and all of the technology left behind, as this would insist of the betrayal Brainiac speaks of when it comes to Lex. And this would conclude our game and would be the end of Chapter 11. Now, with this, use your imagination on how the story would end and how we would move on to a potential sequel or future possible stories just like this. If you guys like this video, please let me know what you thought of it and drop how you would create the game, and would this sound like something you are interested in? As always, please consider liking and subscribing, as it helps me out tremendously and it would mean a lot to me. With that being said, this is Pineapple Sway, and if you made it this far into the video, comment down Lex Luthor. This is Pineapple Sway. Peace out.